You're listening to the Telltale channel. Don't forget to check me out on all social media: Patreon, Twitter, Teespring, and Etsy. All links can be found in the description or on my website, telltaleatheist.com. I've talked about Mark Taylor a couple times before. He's one of the leaders of the Qanon conspiracy theory who said protesters were brainwashed and described it like some kind of bizarre action movie where they have handlers with umbrellas to trigger their programming. Well, guess what? He's in the news again. He says he understands Trump can't make arrests of deep state operatives right now, as the Qanon conspiracy theory states he will, because he'll look like a dictator taking out his political opponents. As if looking like a dictator has stopped him before. But after the election, all bets are off. According to Mark Taylor, there are 14 million veterans ready to go today to step in and take action against the Democrats if Trump doesn't do it himself after the election's over. Now, 14 million is probably an overestimate. To give context, there are about 8.5 million Jehovah's Witnesses worldwide, 14 million Mormons, 40,000 Scientologists, and 1.5 million vegans in the U.S. There are estimates saying QAnon has around 3 million members. And guess how big the U.S. military is? 1.3 million people are enlisted in the U.S. military, which includes everybody from the soldier to the janitor. There are millions of people who want Donald Trump to arrest his political opponents, and if he doesn't, they plan to take matters into their own hands. That's disturbing. No matter what, I have a feeling there's going to be a real, full-blown bloodbath after the election. Speaking of militias, Pastor Rick Joyner went on Jim Bakker's show recently to talk about how God has seeded our country with military veterans to head up Christian militias in the looming civil war. He says God prepared us for this fight, and true patriots and Jesus lovers will be the ones on the front lines. This might be talk, but you and I both know what religion does to people. They would literally die for a religious cause, where they might not for any other. This is serious shit, and the major pastors taking part in this have a lot of influence. The danger of stochastic terrorism is real. Say these pastors have 3 million followers combined. It's significantly more than that, but just assume it's that low. We'll be generous. Now let's assume 1% of the listeners are really crazy enough to buy into what they're saying about this holy war against liberals. That's still 30,000 troops. To give context to those numbers, there are a total of about 17,000 police departments across the U.S. It's a lot of troops. We should all be concerned about what QAnon is doing right now. Jim Bakker isn't just in the news for platforming QAnon nutbags. He made news recently for advertising something he calls the Joseph's Storehouse food offer. I've mentioned before that he sells bonus buckets of freeze-dried food that's supposed to get you through the apocalypse. Well, he's selling 115 of them for $10,000, and he's encouraging churches to buy them for their members so they can make it through Armageddon. 115 is about how many members a standard church has. In fact, my Kingdom Hall had 114 when I was a teenager. And of course, the Joseph's Storehouse offer is a reference to the Bible story about Joseph storing up a bunch of food before a famine hit and selling it back to the people. So how much food does this 115 bucket deal provide? It provides 27,703 servings. If you ration it out, that's enough food for 115 people to survive for about 2.5 months. All the while, he's getting people on his show to talk about the impending civil war and other doomsday stuff. The more scared his listeners are, the more bonus buckets he sells. It's a perfect racket. He couldn't sell colloidal silver as a cure for the coronavirus anymore, so he's leaning into the buckets. Smart. Fucked up, but smart. This week on the podcast, Pat Robertson had some interesting things to say about Black Lives Matter. He said, quote, "They're talking about destroying the nuclear family. They're talking about destroying essentially Christianity as being racist. People should be aware that they're not just standing with the poor oppressed black people. Of course we want to stand with people against police brutality. Of course we do. But we don't want to go along with a lesbian, anti-family, anti-capitalist Marxist revolution. We don't want that for America." So he's admitting the black folks are oppressed under our current system in the U.S., I guess. That's actually more than most Republican thought leaders will admit. Most want to say it's not even happening. Well, the Black Lives Matter organization caught wind of what he said, and they responded. They said, quote, "The statements made by Pat Robertson are completely inflammatory and dangerous. At what point do these individuals who walk alongside him stop and say, enough is enough with the sexist, misogynistic, and supremacist way of displaying the bigotry that continues to flow from the souls of many of our leaders? Christianity was built on empathy, not hate. It is our hope that Pat Robertson and anyone else who believes we're destroying Christianity with our work comes to realize that. In reality, the movement is bigger than the organization. I don't really really agree with everything BLM says and does. In fact, there's a lot that they do that I don't like. But I feel like Christianity nitpicking and attacking movements that sometimes do the wrong thing with good intentions is a waste of time when conspiracy theorists control the government and we're witnessing the fall of democracy. Last week, I talked about Pastor John MacArthur and the fact that he was court-ordered to take precautions to protect his congregation and the people they associate with. I played a clip from him on Fox News saying he wasn't going to follow court orders, and if that means he was going to be arrested, then so be it. Well, guess what? He lived up to his word. He broke court orders and held church anyways. At the very beginning of the sermon, he listed all the requirements for holding church service and then explained why they were unreasonable, so he wasn't going to do any of them. It was pretty basic stuff. Things like screen people who come inside with a thermometer, no shaking hands or hugging, put tape on the floor so people know where to go, no communion, no offering containers, no pew Bibles, that kind of thing. It seems like it might have put the church out a little bit, but considering the fact that A, they don't pay taxes, B, it's a mega church, so they definitely have the money to blow on doing things a safe way, and C, this would literally save lives, it seems like a worthwhile trade-off. But no, he didn't just refuse to do a couple of things. He didn't say, well, we're going to keep the Bibles in the pews anyways, or, well, we're not putting the marked pathways down. He said he isn't doing any of it. Literally nothing. This is humanity at its finest, people. I'm telling you, most of the world is dumb as dog shit, and the smart people carry the idiots through life. At some point, the idiots are going to get all the smart people killed.